Okay, thank you. Hi, guys. This is a complete surprise, but I'm happy to say a couple of words for a couple of minutes. I don't know if anyone else pre-ordered Jonathan's latest book, Spiritual Experience, but it arrived today for me. I ordered it through, yay, Barbara! Woo! Yeah, through thrift books, and yeah, I think it came yesterday. I stayed up half the night reading almost half of it again, and yeah, Jonathan just sent me a text saying, "Tell everyone what you think." And what I wanted to say is that if you do read the book, you will notice that I had the extraordinary honor of writing the foreword for this book. And for me, um, it's like, and then to have the book come out and to see my words in print, I got to tell you, it's just a thrill. And for those of you who personally know me and have been through many of the my own spiritual experiences, and I'm looking straight at Barbara Vale here, who is my real life embodied guardian angel for me. She's just a treasure. And if any of you ever have the opportunity to go on a retreat or to experience her being of service to others, um, she's the real deal. And it's what our work is all about. Yeah, and then I can just like put my book down now and just start crying because I feel so strongly about this. It's what we all strive for. But as far as this book, you know, a few years ago I had the opportunity to read the manuscript, and it it struck me, I probably the way it strikes many of you attending this circle, um, where we've all had these, pieces of intuition and hunches and, hair raising experiences. And we just say, well, either, I'm crazy, or it's just, you just kind of write it off. But when I began working with Jonathan and when I read this manuscript, something happened to me. Um, and it's actually occurred in a couple of other books I've picked up where there's been this transmission that's just come into me. And with this book, all of those things, in childhood, in dreams, where you're flying, where you maybe travel to other distant lands, or, just every time you see a sunset, you fall to pieces. Um, it was this, like, it wasn't that one person, Jonathan, has said, you know, this is real, this matters. It absolutely changes the quality of your life and those who you touch. It also, it just is an affirmation that we're okay. And I think we come into this circle, um, partially to hear that, to find that out, to find our kindred spirits. I know I do. Um, I'm confident at this point in my life, um, as to the experiences I have, but um, it matters that we get to share them. We get to listen to each other and hold space and be accepting. And um, that's truly, you know, what the magic is of a spiritual experience. It's not that, oh, I had 3 spiritual experiences this week, and gee, if you haven't had any, then there's something wrong with you. You know, it's it's getting to that space um, where you're ready, you're available to listen to what the universe is bringing to you. Um, and that's what matters. So what this book has done for me, it's just um, it's just affirmed that these are ordinary, everyday experiences, and we get to speak about them and share them and affirm each other. And I think I saw Jonathan just enter, so I hope he picks it up from here.
I heard that.
You did.
Unbelievable. I have a story to tell everyone, and it relates to why I'm doing this from a cafe and with a headset, and it actually addresses, ironically, the topic I wanted to talk about today. So we have a lived experience, a demo, and I have to thank Joni for doing a little warm up. I think of it as maybe an event, and also Garth for endless patience. So the thing I wanted to share with you today is how the more I talk about this new book, which obviously is my preoccupation right now, the more I see it as incredibly, incredibly practical and important. And I think that when you see a book titled Spiritual Experience, it can seem maybe anything but, right? It seems like maybe a topic for people who have time on their hands, or people who, are at a point in their life where they can consider the bigger picture and the larger existential questions. But I've come to feel very strongly that's not the case at all. So before I proceed, can you all hear me okay still? Garth, good enough? Thank God. Okay. So maybe what we could do is take a breath together and just, I'm not going to do the usual welcomes and naming everybody. Let's just like slow down more, and then I'll share the story about how the power of spiritual experience continues to present itself in everyday life. With that, I'm going to invite you to sit quietly, comfortably, wherever you are. I'm going to invite you to close your eyes. If I can do it in a busy cafe, which I'll explain, you can do it where you are. And I'm going to encourage you, as we often do, to take a big breath in through the nose, and then a long, long, slow release. And repeat that, but elongating each time the hold and the release. So big breath in, pause, and when you're ready, release longer each time. And each time you hold, use that as a moment to take an inventory. Are you holding tension in your body? Let it go. Are you holding tension or busyness in your mind? Let it go. Are there emotions that you want to cling to and justify or explore? Just let them go. Feel the way the body responds to your breath. Feel the way you become more aware of the stillness behind the noise that may be within you or around you. And then I invite you to envision a beautiful light in the center of your chest. It doesn't matter if you're good or not practiced at visualization. Just imagine it, picture it, think it, feel it. A beautiful light in the center of your chest. What color? What color is that? You can choose it or see it spontaneously. Imagine this is a healing, grounding presence that is connected and yet as present in this world as anything. It is connected to the worlds beyond and here and now. Just take a moment to focus on that light, that color, that feeling. And then when you're ready, breathing into it and allowing it to grow so that it fills within you like a sphere, growing and pouring down through your hips, towards your feet, out through your shoulders, arms into your fingertips, and up towards the top of your head. And then we're going to go one more step together. Take another nice, gentle, big breath and feel that sphere of light expand around you, big enough so that if there were a circle of people around you, that they could be held inside the light. So again, think it, feel it, create it, see it spontaneously, whatever is natural for you. And imagine right now that this light, this sphere, this color is holding you as you begin to become aware subtly or more so a presence of being known and unknown that are around you. And they are loving you, they are watching over you, and they're here to help, to join you. Maybe you imagine a loved one that's passed. Maybe you see or feel a being or a creature that you've never imagined before. But take a moment and let yourself be surrounded by this circle. Notice what that feels like. Feel the way you are all held within. And then you need do nothing more than appreciate them, love them, feel them, honor them, thank them in your heart if you like, and allow them to remain as much as you can feel it, see it, or think it. And then when you're ready, and open your eyes and come back to this group. You can still hear me okay, Garth? So this, so first of all, I want to tell you the story a little bit about the morning and how I ended up in a cafe on headphones. And then I also want to talk about this guided imagery, which I think was really important. And probably I wouldn't have done if I was able to do this whole thing in my office. So the first thing is I had something come up where it didn't seem like I could run the session today. And yeah, I did this interview. I was really fortunate to do an interview with um, Steve Farrell, one of the founders of Humanity's Team, and I really didn't want to not do this today because I felt like, gosh, if anyone heard that interview and showed up today, I wouldn't want them to be frustrated or annoyed, although it is our usual group. So that's nice too. So I made arrangements to be at an office. It's actually an immigration law office that's I've done some business with, and we had a space planned. And then and so Garth, with Garth's concerns at ease, don't worry, we got it all covered. We got a signal, we got a quiet space. And then just like an hour ago or something like that, I found out that we weren't going to have the space. They had to close the office. Suddenly there was only one person there. And I thought, oh, I'm gonna have to find a backup plan. And I don't like doing these things in cafes. So okay, we can do this, right? We can do this. We can take a breath. Life changes. Be open-minded. Look for the opportunity. And so I find the cafe, and then it's parking. And for the first time ever visiting this cafe where I normally park in front, I'm circling the neighborhood. I'm circling the neighborhood. And I'm wondering, how is this important for the class? Because if it's happening to me, it's happening to them. If I'm late for me, I'm late for them. And, you know, I don't know if you know, but this is one of my favorite spiritual teachings, which is it's called the parking lot teaching. You know the parking lot teaching? Lots of notes. Okay, good. So how many of you have ever felt when you were running late and a parking space just opened up for you right in front of the place that you were perfectly guided and it was divine intervention, right? You know that feeling like, wow, God is with me. The guides are with me. The spirits are with me. Now, I'm going to ask you a different question. How many times have you been running late and not found a parking spot and circled and become frustrated or agitated and felt like nothing was going your way that day, like everything was falling apart, like my day? Well, the parking lot teaching is I don't believe, I don't believe that spiritual guidance and connection is this faulty light switch. Sometimes it's on, sometimes it's off. If you're guided when you get the spot, you're guided when you don't get the spot. That's my opinion. If it's all meant to be perfect when everything goes your way and you're happy and comfortable, it's probably all perfect when you're really friggin' stressed and frustrated. So it's just like, okay, we're gonna do this. We're gonna find the spot. When we find the spot, we're gonna take the lesson where we can take the lesson. So there you go. This is the first lesson of the day: is the parking lot. Remember the parking lot, parking spot teaching. So that means when things aren't the way you want them, that might also be guidance. And then we come to the what I thought I was going to talk about. And I was having some doubts in recent times, and we're gonna get to you soon because I want to hear your stories. I was having some doubts recently about whether spiritual experience was in fact as important in everyday life as I've always thought it was. Because, some things are bumpy and some things are out of balance and things aren't always in the flow. And like, what does that mean? Does that mean I'm not connected, or does it mean my experiences were active once and influencing my life once, but not now? But I really think that aside from what spiritual experiences teach us about the spiritual world, is there energy? Is there consciousness? Is there divine love? Are there spirits? These things. I mean, we encounter all these things in the spiritual realm. And for me, in the exercise we just did, I very quickly feel presence and emotion and energy. But I think there's a kind of inferred lesson or inferred sort of learning that happens in spiritual experience. And that is that there is a way to show up in spiritual experience that ultimately seems to be the way to show up in life. So this is the real lesson or message of the day for me, which is because some of our spiritual experiences can be scary, but if we want to see it through, we need to be patient. non-contracting, open-minded, curious, because spiritual experiences can sometimes dissolve the ego, and we can feel the urge to cling and control and not give in. Because spiritual experiences can give and take away profound feelings of love, we can doubt ourselves and need to reinvigorate faith and trust in the affirmation that that energy, once seen, is always there. And so in the end, we realize that if we take the same, you might say, skills or mindset or lessons of attitude and presence that allow spiritual experiences to thrive and prosper, um, we can carry those same things into the rest of our life. One great example, and this is probably where I'm gonna, well, I think there's a couple of places I'm gonna wrap up, just accentuate some things, and then I want to hear from you. I'm really interested to know if you feel that you have carried some things from your spiritual experiences into your life beyond just knowing that there's something metaphysical out there or something magical out there. I mean, that's lovely, but what is there something you carry with you every day? So, um, so I'm going to give you three things: mental, emotional, physical. These are my three highlights. So mentally, I would say that the phrase is mental agility, like the ability to be, and that includes so many things, to be adaptable, flexible, curious, and particularly in a moment like what I was dealing with this morning, where things don't go my way or things don't go as planned. Am I stuck on the way it should have been? Or can I let that go as quickly as the new circumstances show up and just look for the opportunity, look for the lesson, and be present with it? And I think that adaptability and curiosity, and it's a kind of opportunistic thing, is what I would call mental agility. And it's very, very hard to stay in spiritual experience or to return to them again and again without a substantial amount of mental agility. The next thing would be something emotional. And the emotional thing is that we start to realize that we can have feelings without, we can feel feelings without allowing them to shape our identity and attention. Now, this is kind of a tricky, subtle thing to talk about. So I could feel afraid of something I'm beginning to see or feel, imagine in a spiritual experience, but I don't have to behave fearfully. I don't have to feed fearful thoughts. I can keep the fear. I mean, it's there. I actually have, you might be surprised to know I get afraid of a lot of my spiritual experiences scare me. Um, I feel the fear, and then I give it a space and let it stay. And I just say, okay, I'm afraid and I'm still doing this. So it's to honor and engage in an emotion while continuing, but from a different place. And then the final thing is the body. And one of the things, simple lesson that I've taken away from spiritual experiences is that the body really needs, in most cases, to be relaxed. Now, Roger Walsh wrote an interesting book on shamanism, the art of shamanism. It was republished. It's worth reading because it's really about consciousness, not about shamanism, I don't think. But he talks about the range of activities that inspire a spiritual experience, and he talks about how in the East it's about reducing physical activity to extremes, and in the indigenous world it's about increasing physical activity to extremes. Now, it's not exactly accurate; it's a bit reductionistic, but the idea there is, yes, we can do it through just sitting and sitting and sitting, or we can do it through repetition, dance, movement, qigong, tai chi, and even vigorous activity, which we see in shamanic practices, can actually work people into a heightened ecstatic state of open awareness. But in any case, in either extreme, what's in common with the body is what I guess I would call flow, or I don't really have a good word for it, but it's something about releasing tension, right? There's a fluidity when there's rapid movement practices, and there's a fluidity in sitting. In meditation, if you sit with rigidity or you sit with tension, you will suffer something unimaginable. I have to say, probably some of the worst pain I've ever felt in my life has been just sitting still. And typically that comes from tension in the body. Um, and if you don't believe me, just try it. Just sit still and don't really move for an hour. And, don't scratch your nose and, just hold a position. It's awful until you find a way to relax into whatever it is. And so now to translate this into life, if you're going to bed at night and you're lots on your mind or lots in your heart, notice your body. Very often you'll find a hand under the pillow clenched, or your legs tucked up, but they're tight, or tension in the jaw, or you're sitting at your computer writing an email and you notice tension in your glutes or things like that. So this is the sort of one of the three sort of takeaways I wanted to share today. Do a body scan whenever you can, grocery store shopping, eating your meal, having a conversation, a difficult conversation, and notice where you are literally contracting. Because as the body contracts, consciousness somewhere in your awareness will be contracting as well. So this is what I wanted to share today. I'm sorry the lesson was hard earned, but I appreciate all the friendly faces I'm seeing, all the people I know. And I wonder, I'd love you to just start jumping in. I'm going to call on you if you don't jump in. But I'd love to hear, as we talk about these things, what are some of the things coming to mind for you when you think about, something you've learned from your own spiritual journey, but more specifically from spiritual experiences that you have kept with you or that come back to you again and again as just something that really works for you in life. Barbara, actually, trying to check and see how many Barbaras we have today. Barbara, you're the only Barbara today. Barbara, you have a practice actually that I think about immediately, and I don't know if you want to talk about it, but for years, you have had a practice of checking in for guidance. And I wonder, probably some people that know you don't even get it. They're like, well, Barbara has to apparently check in with someone before she comes out with us. Can I put you on the spot to kick it off and say
Sure.
something about that? Because I think I see it as something very integrated in you, but I also wonder if there was a time where it wasn't,
Oh, yeah. I learned how to do muscle testing years and years ago when I was taking Psych K. And at the beginning, I didn't know if I could trust myself. Um, but over the years, I use it all the time. I use it to ask whether I should have this or that supplement today or not, whether I ought to um, go here or stay home or just any old thing. And sometimes I don't get a clear yes or no answer. It has to be a less yes or no question. Um, and so I've come to realize that sometimes my divine is kind of playing with me and wants me to figure it out myself. Doesn't want me to ask. And it doesn't matter. Either choice is fine. It doesn't matter. So that's one thing. But I think it became stronger when I realized early on that I don't really feel, well, this has been true in the past at least. I feel things very subtly.
Mhm.
And so sometimes I don't know whether I'm having an experience or not, or whether, this is important or not. And my friends are talking about, oh my God, I felt that energy. Didn't you feel that in the room? Oh my God. And I'm like, no. And uh, so so on those subtle experiences, what I have learned is that I need to just wait and see what we could say the consequences are, or what happens later. And so, case in point, I got very interested in earthing.com,
Mhm.
and grounding mattress pads and all kinds of things. And I was persuaded by my sister to get one. So I did. And she's just all like, oh my God, did you feel different? Did you really sleep? I can't tell you how deeply I sleep. It's so great. No, it's, um, I don't know. It's kind of funny. It's not this great experience. And so then I was talking to a friend of mine, and she said, just kind of, I was talking about something, and she said, you sound so grounded. Just had to laugh. I think, oh, I guess that's the way I'm supposed to feel about it. That's where that's what's happening. But I just waited until, because otherwise the jury's out. I don't know
Mhm.
whether I'll, keep this on my bed or not, or whatever, but that happens all the time. I go to this network chiropractic thing, and I don't feel the things right away. I mean, hardly ever. But later on, and the next day, oh my God, I just noticed my perceptions are different. How I'm wording things are different. The thing that bothered me in my neck's not there anymore. Or, anyway, I could go on.
I love these examples, and you even got me writing some things down. The way I hear you, and I'm not saying this is even what it is for you, but I hear, an illustration of some qualities that you need and use in your relationship to these experiences that are qualities that we all need in life, which is, for example, patience, because we don't always see the result of what we do instantly, right? We teach someone, we thank someone, we correct someone, whatever it may be. And then, oh shoot, there were these two things I want to, oh, and then I really just appreciated the way you shared that at some point you had to accept that we're just not all going to get it the same. And that is true of spiritual experience, right? Like I'm in this yoga class and everyone got up and said it was so powerful, and I fell asleep. Like what? What happened? Um, but that's, it's the same of politics, it's the same of restaurants, same of movies. So those are super translatable lessons, along with all the other things you shared. So thank you. Who would like to jump in before I pick someone? There's something. Oh, come on, man. Well, I'm going to pick someone kind of new. Okay, Joan, in just a moment. Lori, I noticed some emojis and thumbs up, so I'm going to pick on you and ask what you're relating to, or what you might want to say a little more about or ask about.
Uh, I wasn't ready for that.
Yeah,
Well, I was
sorry.
just thanking Barbara for that because I can relate to what she's saying. I should muscle test more. I think that would help me with my decisions, whether I feel uh sometimes I don't know whether something is the right step or the wrong step, and then you just deal with the repercussions, whether it was the right step or the wrong, if it was the wrong step. And I feel things subtly. I think I'm trying to really work on being stronger feeling or even knowing what my feelings are. So that's about all I have to say.
I like that. I like that. Well, I'll just pull two things out of that, which is I think that is true in spiritual experiences. Many of us have to cultivate this curiosity and sensitivity, right? Some people I know on this call, like me, everything's really vivid, but that's not everybody. In fact, I don't think that's the majority of people at all. And so there's a practice there, which is, oh, someone invited me out to dinner and I kind of wanted to stay home. What? Let me sit with that a little bit and see what I'm really feeling. Am I feeling excited to go out and nourished by that, or do I need time for myself? And I think owning that is just important, because then if we don't, it's hard to make good decisions. And the other thing, it reminds me of an expression that I like, which is to live like a ceremony. And it's not that you said it directly, but it kind of inspired me the way you were talking. When we're in spiritual activities, could be at a church or a synagogue or a sweat lodge or a whatever, Tai Chi class, we tend to have a willingness to see the whole thing, right, as a learning experience. Kind of the way I said, I showed up late. How's the lesson for me? The lesson for you, like this. But we can do that with any moment of life. That's really the life practice, which is to see all things as teachers, all people as teachers, all situations as evoking evidence of our connection or disconnection. So that provides information we can work with. Now, Joan, you had your hand up, so why don't you come in? Speaking of people who feel things and see things, so unmute yourself and jump in.
Thank you. Yes, I mean, I am the opposite of Barbara, and I sit there and think, well, maybe they're the really subtle energies until I get hit over the head, and maybe I really am not checking in and I just all that gets bypassed, and it just comes like, whoa, and then I see a license plate, and then I see an animal, and I love those experiences, but I really wonder if I'm missing the little subtle things and bypassing. So I loved what you both said, and understand that it's a gift in many ways, because sometimes when you get hit over it's not necessarily all positive by the time everything happens. So that's one. The second is, I mean, for me, it's writing too, of just asking. And I realize sometimes people call me and go, can I have a session? Can I have a reading? And I realize that what I say and tell them based on their experience is often meant for me as well. So I had said to someone, and the muscle testing is really interesting. I used to do that, but I have some challenges, so probably dropped it. I'd love to hear more about how do you do that? Because I always used to do this. But that is, I am choosing. And the next part is, I am choosing because. And I think that it's a very powerful thing. I am choosing to stay in because. I am choosing to eat this pint of ice cream because. I am choosing, to whatever it is, but add the because, which I think really adds the emotional, the body, and the mental, because you're really, if you sit with that and you say, okay, no, that's wrong, I don't want to choose that, or now I understand more about why I'm doing that. So those are just a few.
I like that because I think, yeah, it's a nice practice because it invites the deeper knowing. And I would bet if I did that more often, well, when I get to the because, I would probably sometimes change my mind again, right? Because I'd be like, oh, no, that's not for me. I'm not going. And then I'll say, okay, I'm not going because, and then I'd probably unearth something like, oh, right? I see the
Right,
nod of your
right,
head, right?
right,
Like,
right.
I don't want to deal with those people. And then I'll think, oh, no, that's not a good reason. So thank you. I like that. Much more to say, but Carol's hand is in the air. So Carol, welcome, welcome, and thank you for being with us today.
Thank you. I'm new to the group, so I don't actually know anybody or sort of what you do.
You're
I
among
trained,
friends now.
thank you. I trained in energy medicine with Donna Eden, who some people might know that, but it's very centered around muscle testing. So particularly for knowing whether your body wants a certain food at that moment, you would hold the food against your solar plexus chakra and you would use a spleen muscle test to know if spleen is happy to metabolize it. So that got me into the way of thinking of asking questions using muscle testing. So I really responded to Barbara coming in and speaking about that. But I don't have much ability for knowing what I'm feeling. So yes, if it's extremely strong, or I've had a terrible upset or a rejection or something, it's obvious and you know what that will be. But if you hear about a spiritual practice every day to just stop, go inside and ask yourself, what emotion am I feeling right now? And it's very difficult. So I might sort of find something in my body and go, yeah, there's a feeling there. And it doesn't feel all loving. So it's probably a negative one. But is it anger? I don't know. Is it sadness? I don't know. Is it frustration? I don't know. But is it necessary to know? Because it would reveal itself if it needed you to know. So can you not just offer compassion and be with it?
Yes, I certainly think so. And you know, it's interesting, Carol, this came up, I think it might have been last week. And we were, or it was an interview or something, but it came up and it was, do we always have to mentalize or know? And I do believe, kind of bouncing or springing out of your comments, that it's important and powerful to know when we can. And it's also important and powerful to be okay when we can't. And more than that, my sense, and I do think this is one of the gifts of spiritual practice, is to be perpetually reminded that so much of life is not about knowing, right? There's a balance. So yes, there are practices for discernment. Yes, there are practices to be aware of our feelings, our emotions, our senses. It's all important. And yet, at the same time, so many of the traditions that I've experienced and been involved in, particularly traveling, so in indigenous communities, I would say, and I would say in my experience, more limited, but my experience of Eastern traditions, um, there's not a lot of chatting, right? About what did you see? What did you feel? What did it mean? No, we did the practice. It's enough. We moved the energy. It's enough. You had the treatment. It's enough. And that's hard because I'm generalizing, we don't have a lot of faith in this Western modern mind to just know that something's happening. Or you mean to trust. I shouldn't say no, because that's the wrong word. To trust it. So I appreciate that very much, everything you shared. Thank you. Glad you were here. Maybe we'll see you again. And usually what we do, by the way, so when I'm on time, the first 5 minutes or so, or 10 minutes, is sometimes just the group connecting, people saying hi, asking questions, me giving an announcement, sharing a story, talking about my Wi-Fi, and people kind of trickle in the room, and we use it as 5 minutes or so just to kind of get connected. And then it's the rest of it unfolds something like this. So there's usually some teaching, usually something experiential, usually some dialogue and question in different measures and combinations, but that's more or less the formula. So welcome. And Lanny's little Marge Simpson hand is up there. Lanny, will you unmute and share what you've got? We're coming to the end of our time.
Yeah, I do muscle testing all the time, and I always question myself, am I getting the right answer? But recently, just before this gathering, I was looking at my energy. I have an autoimmune, but that doesn't mean anything, it just is. But I was looking at why I only have a little bit of energy and not energy that lasts longer. And I'm looking at that I've given myself, like, I could have a little bit of energy, but I don't deserve to have more energy. It's like a little bit of candy, I could have a little treat. It almost reminds me like of a fairy tale. I never grew up on fairy tales because I grew up in Mexico, but it feels like I'm only deserving a little bit of energy, and then it's over. So this has been taking me through part of that little journey about it. I'm still in the process. But
And Lanny, can you say a little more when you say I only have a little energy or give myself a little energy? Do you mean both subtle energy as though you're summoning or welcoming or activating it? Or do you mean more in just the energy to get up and go, just the energy to be busy and do things?
it's both. And it's like I'm probably not going to go to the next thing, which I muscle tested myself 3 things, because I feel it's going to be an energy drain to go do something else. And I have so many, you can see my piles behind me of to-dos that I just haven't gotten to. And I'm better at being at peace with it. But I'm looking at what am I doing to myself, because I think it's all within me. And why I have given myself only a little bit of energy to be happy and joyful and joyous, and then feel drained after that. That's how what I'm playing with right now.
Wow, thank you. I think this is actually quite profound. And I also recognize that you're not necessarily, you're giving an example for us of something you're working with. You're not asking for anyone to fix this for you. But I have to say, and this connects back to Carol's comment, and oddly, almost ironically, goes back to Barbara's. I'm going to just, put the little beads on the thread here. For me, it's easy to interpret what Barbara said, or some others, as being, oh, this is a way they know what to do next, make decisions. But it's interesting that there's been a thread here in a few people's comments about the fact that those practices were chosen because there has been some uncertainty about how to read the energy. So pick up a practice where the energy reading is more distinct. But what I'm pointing to is it's actually more about energy than it is about ideas and decisions. And I think you're really bringing that up, right? That in the end, and this was a big transition for me in my 20s, I think, because I was so immersed in Indigenous tradition at the time, and at that time, my own extended family and the man I call my dad, there's so little mental discourse around explaining things, or here's what we're going to do in the ceremony today. First we'll do this, then we'll do that, and you should feel this, and then you'll know. Like, none of that's happening. And I really had to kind of question, like, what the hell are we doing if we're not learning things or understanding things, or right? And I realized it's really all about energy. Its ceremonies are about moving energy, and that spiritual practices are as much about energy as they are about meaning. And that very often, if we work with our energy system first, meaning arises. It is also true the opposite way, though, that when we find something meaningful, we are energized. And we know the brain is even wired that way. But I just love that you're, I think, inviting all of us to pay attention to almost like what I would call the energy journey. And Carol mentioned Donna Eden. who has so much incredible work on energy and the energy body. Um, yeah, so it's interesting. I think what I take away is just a reminder to people that, if you're ever feeling a little stuck in making sense of what's going on in your spiritual life, maybe focus on the energy and just notice where you have it, where you don't, how you raise it, how you lose it, and all those sorts of things.
My
So
thing is,
listen,
I feel negative when I don't have the energy.
mm,
And I don't like that. I'd like to have even, balanced, whatever. That's where I'm at.
yes, and I think there are, practices to evoke that. One interesting thing that comes to mind, and I know we're gonna wrap up in a couple minutes here, um, and today I'm gonna, for those of you that are newer, Gilbert, welcome as well. I'm gonna wrap up on time today only because of the unusual circumstance and that I'm in a weird place doing this. Although there's a crowd here of about 50 people listening. No, I'm kidding. There's quite a bit of interesting research going on now around energy in the brain, and that what we're calling energy is often dopamine, actually, right? Because when we have a dopamine hit, we're energized, and when we have a deficit or loss, we actually experience it as a loss of energy. Now, I'm not saying it's one and the same, but I am saying there's a kind of connection, and I've noticed that. In fact, I was just thinking about that myself, which is, I think that because I've constructed ideas or even habits around how I keep that level up in ways that I think are reasonably healthy, I do feel attached to them and even threatened or controlling when they start to get pulled away. Like, don't pull away, don't ask me to do this differently because this is the way I do it and keep my energy up, that kind of thing. So it's only to say, for those of you that are exploring energy, it's also interesting to explore some of the new research coming out on spirituality in the brain. And it's fascinating because what we conclude ultimately is that it's all connected. Soul, mind, body, heart, subtle energy, physical energy, and so on. I wonder if anyone has any just burning, urgent last things before we say goodbye. Loretta, why don't you
I
have the
just
last
wanted
word?
to get the author of The Art of Shamanism.
Oh, yes. Such a good book. It's a classic, really. It's by Roger Walsh. And I
Thank
think it's
you.
Walsh. But you'll find it. You'll find
Thank
it
you.
easily. Yeah. Really, really wonderful book. It's kind of old now. Probably was originally written. It was originally written as the spirit of shamanism back in like the 80s. If anyone can remember the 80s. I guess we can all remember. I see Lori. No, don't know about that. All right. Well, listen, I'm really grateful for everyone being here today. Special greetings and thanks to the new folks. And hopefully you'll join us next week and we'll do something else interesting. And I'll be back in my office and we'll start just crisply on time. And but I do hope that today has given you some things to think about, some things to explore, some things to pay attention to. And we'll continue the journey.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Go
Okay, lots of
Niners.
love. Oh yeah. Go Chiefs.
Very spiritual, very, very spiritual topic.
Some people are gonna have some highs on Sunday. Okay. Bye
Yeah.
bye.
Thank you.